this one will cost him 2 points.
To the pylon and in for the touchdown.
You want to do everything you can to win. This one was special.
I-N-D-Y jumps up into the air for a touchdown. Blocked to Hamler for the second time. And cap in the back of the end zone. He's got it.
Went and got behind the television camera.
Every time we leave the stadium, we have a hat of some type of thing we've accomplished.
Throwing it long, he's got Tyreek Hill over the shoulder. Caught, holy Gronkowski.
We just showed we can do any damn thing we want.
Ball is out. Touchdown, Chase Young for the win. It's good.
Gave us a spark as a team. Yeah, big W.
He's going to go all the way. Touchdown. Stephon Diggs makes a catch. Touchdown, Buffalo.
Tom Brady corrected course for the Bucs yesterday, throwing 2 TDs in a win against the Vikings to avoid their 3rd straight loss. As we take a look at the current NFC playoff standings, the Bucs maintain the 6th spot with the win. Meanwhile, that bad man and his Packers are holding that all-important number 1 seed, which means a first-round bye in home field. So the Saints and Packers have clinched, assuming the Bucs join them. Stephen A., do you think Brady would be the most important player in the NFC playoffs?
I believe so. I believe so because I believe that if Brady somehow, with the rest of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, are clicking on all cylinders offensively, I think they're going to the Super Bowl. Now, obviously, that hasn't been the case, and we've seen a precipitous drop-off compared to our expectations. Not necessarily Max because he was all about the Saints at the beginning of the season. I was all about the Buccaneers. But here's the reality. When you look at Aaron Rodgers, of course, you got mad respect for Devontae Adams, to slightly lesser degree Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Alan Lazard and those boys. But look at the weapons on Tampa Bay. You got Ronald Jones averaging more than 5 yards a carry, who clearly should be running the football more than Bruce Arians has given them an opportunity to do so. You've got Gronk at your tight end spot along with Cameron Brate. You never even really thought about Scott Miller until this year, and he's their primary deep threat. And that doesn't even take into consideration a Mike Evans, a Chris Godwin, and Antonio Brown, who for some reason doesn't look like the all-world receiver and future Hall of Famer that we knew him to be. So, but all of those weapons are what Tom Brady has at his disposal. So for me, when I look at the Green Bay Packers, I look at a well-balanced team led by a superstar in Aaron Rodgers with 39 touchdowns, just 4 interceptions. But I still look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as being presumably on paper the more explosive, more potent, better offense that can really, really make a run if all cylinders were clicking appropriately. That's the difference between the two. I think with the Green Bay Packers, you look at a multitude of different things. With the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, everything appears to be riding on Tom Brady and how he can click with these weapons he has available to him.
I don't see it that way at all. I think the whole thing about Tampa is their defense. When their defense is elite, they're very tough to beat because Brady doesn't have to do too much because, frankly, he's not capable of doing that much anymore. He's 43 years old, even though he has an embarrassment of riches on offense. Like, it's no other quarterback. Like, it's so many guys that can produce on that offense. It's ridiculous. No, what other quarterback has that number of weapons in the NFC? And yet, Brady, the last time he won a Super Bowl, did it in the lowest scoring Super Bowl in the history of Super Bowls. Lowest scoring Super Bowl ever. They beat the Rams, right? Did it on his defense. And if he's going to win this year, it's going to be based on the defense too. Really, what Brady has to do is limit mistakes. Of course, every quarterback has to make some nice plays, but he basically has to limit mistakes. That means that he's less important because there are more quarterbacks who can do that than what Aaron Rodgers has to do. Aaron Rodgers, by the way, Stephen A., you've brought it up, and I really haven't pushed back that much. I say Mahomes is the best I've ever seen. You said Rodgers, but I agree that Mahomes and Rodgers are by themselves in terms of who my eyeballs have been on where I go, that guy's the best I've ever seen. It's the Mahomes-Rodgers category. Guess what happened yesterday after Mahomes threw 3 interceptions, even though he almost threw for 400 yards and beat the Dolphins on the road? Guess who's number 1 in quarterback QBR right now for this season? Number 1. Aaron Rodgers, he of 39 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. And you just got through saying Brady got more weapons than Rodgers. We talk about all the time how Rodgers has only thrown passes to 2 different receivers or pass catchers drafted in the first round of his career. And they didn't even go out and get him help in the offseason, Stephen A. Like Tom Brady's team snatched an offensive lineman, right? They wanted to show up the offensive line. Aaron Rodgers' team drafted his replacement in the first round. They didn't get him any help at receiver. They didn't even get him any defensive help. And the Packers' defensive upside is not what the Bucs' defensive upside is. If the Packers go on a Super Bowl run, and they might.
I'm going to roll with Washington in this one. Obviously, I'm allergic to picking the Dallas Cowboys. We all know that. Not trying to pick them. By the way, I got my friend Mark Turner. There was an APB out for him, y'all. We couldn't find him for several weeks, being the coward, the weak, pathetic, disgusting, nauseating Cowboy fan that he is. He was nowhere to be found whatsoever, but they win a game, and then all of a sudden my phone is blowing up about how Dallas is only one game out of first place in the NFC East. This is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about when I tell you I despise Dallas Cowboy fans. That's why I haven't answered this calls. I just refuse to talk to him. Having said all of that, it comes down to the Giants and Washington to me. And when you look at Washington, it's just basically looking at the schedule, guys. The Washington did lose to the Giants twice this year, Max. I get that. So they've got to avoid a tiebreak at all costs. But I see Washington winning 2 of their next 3 games. I expect them to lose to Seattle, but I expect them to beat Carolina and ultimately, I think it's the Philadelphia Eagles, if I remember correctly. And so when I look at it from that perspective, I say, excuse me, I think this is something that they can do, all right? Whereas when I look at the New York Giants, you got Cleveland and Baltimore the next 2 games. I don't see you winning either of those games with both of them playing for their playoff lives. They're both trying to get in. There's an elevated level of urgency. One of them is going to lose to the other tonight, which is going to make their games in the last 3 weeks that much more important. And so because of that, I just think the odds are stacked against the New York Giants. That combined with the way Danny Dimes looked yesterday, the fact that they struggle offensively. I love the job that Joe Judge is doing. Again, they play hard. I see improvement every single week. I got nothing but respect for the job that this man has done. But I think that right now, this is not for them. Saquon Barkley is obviously out. Daniel Jones was hurt. He came back, didn't look that great to me. I just look at Washington, despite the fact that you had one quarterback and Alex Smith throwing for 57 yards and another, Dwayne Haskins, throwing for only 51 yards. That's 108 yards combined at the quarterback position, which is basically nothing. Despite all of that, their defense is elite. And I think that's going to propel them to 2 victories in the next 3 weeks. That'll leave them at 8-8. And because of it, they'll win the division crown.
You're pointing out the reasons that Washington is correctly favored. If you want to just play the odds, they have an extra win. There aren't a lot of games to go. Washington has, at least on paper, an easier schedule, so they should win the division. So I have to admit that this is on my heart more than in my head, right? I think the Giants are going to win the division. I think that they also, they are capable of playing elite defense, even if we didn't see it yesterday. Maybe a bad matchup for them. And their schedule, while you talk about the Browns and the Ravens, and they're good teams, I don't look at the Browns or the Ravens as being unwinnable games for the Giants. And when you look at the schedule for the Washington team, obviously Seattle, they'll be underdogs. Also a winnable game for them, but they're going to be underdogs. But you have to think of the Eagles differently now, Stephen A. It's no longer Carson Wentz starting. They just beat the Saints. They're capable of beating Washington. If they're capable of beating the Saints, especially in NFC rivalry games are different. So I wouldn't just automatically say, well, yeah, the Giants are going to finish with a lesser record. If the Giants can make up that one game over the next 3, as you said, they have the tiebreaker. They beat Washington twice this year. They'll go to the playoffs. So now let's look at why that might be. Why are the Giants maybe a little better than they showed yesterday? Well, and maybe Washington a little worse. Alex Smith hurt his calf. It was a calf strain. He had to come out of the game, right? So what's troublesome is that's the same leg that he had that terrible injury on. That's not just like a gimme, oh yeah, sure, he'll be back and fine. And Alex Smith has played well, but now they're not so sure. And if it's Dwayne Haskins under center, he really wasn't good. The stats make him look a little better than he was yesterday. Now let's flip it around to the Giants. Daniel Jones looked terrible yesterday. He looked like he regressed, but Stephen A., he clearly couldn't move. He has a hamstring injury. He was gung-ho to get back. I think he probably came back a week too early. Colt McCoy was good enough to win, right? And as a result, he was stationary. And once he's stationary, that's a huge part of his game. He's a running quarterback. Daniel Jones is very fast. He's a running quarterback. You take that part away from his game, it's not the same player. So otherwise, Daniel Jones this year has been about middle of the pack, maybe a tick below average starter. Right now, he's 18th in QBR, including yesterday's debacle, right? So when you think about what they're going to have under center going forward, Jones, should he be a week healthier, should get back to being about an NFL average starter. Alex Smith's injury, on the other hand, is troubling. Dwayne Haskins isn't ready, and I wouldn't be so quick to say the schedule eliminates the Giants. I think the Giants have a good chance to win the NFC East.
I disagree with that. I really, really do, because I look at this schedule and I'm saying, nah, I can't see it happening. The fact that you've got Cleveland and Baltimore back-to-back over the next 2 weeks with such a level of urgency attached to them, I can't see that happening. Just can't see it. Can't see it.
Well, all you got to do is win one of those, right? And then you got to win the last game of the season against the Cowboys. That's a winnable game. It's a losable game, too, because none of these teams are great, but the Giants are at least trending in the right direction until yesterday. And as I said, there are reasons that they regressed yesterday.